Good morning and welcome to the I Work For Me podcast. This is Melina Lewis, and I am super excited today because I am speaking to Debi Hawkins. Debi I have known for a while because she lived down the road, and at the time she was just the woman who lives down the road. But I slowly learned about all the amazing things that Debi does. She has since, I have learned about how amazing Debi is. She's actually left and moved somewhere else, which is unfortunate for me because now I can't just pop in down the road for tea. But that aside, Debi is an actress. She is a voiceover artist. She is a director. She's probably writes plays. I know she is a writer. So she does 1,001 things. She comes from the creative space of creation, and she's absolutely amazing. So without further ado, I want to say hello, Debi. Hi.
Hello, Mel.
How are you?
I'm well, and I'm not that far away. You can still get in your nice car and drive and see me.
This is true. This is true. I've become very Cape Town, though. I'm a real lazy fart. If I can't get there in like 0.1 minute, it's like so far. But
that's from living in Bishop, Mel. That's what happens.
I know. Don't live in a village for too long. It gets inside your head.
Too convenient.
Too convenient. Exactly. Okay, so Debs, before we kick off with our businessy type questions, tell us, when you were growing up, what did you want to be?
Such a cool question, Mel. No one had asked me that for so long. No, definitely I wanted to be an artist, and very specifically Hallmark cards. You know, the little pretty things on the front of the cards, and that was definitely what I was going to be. And then while I was thinking about this, weirdly, I phoned my mum and said, Mum, I think I was always wanting to be an actress. Was that true, or did I make that up in retrospect because that's what I did? She said, Deb, you were such a pain. All of you lot would perform. I were 4 of us growing up on the farm. If people came to the farm, you had to come and watch what we were doing. And we would put on these very elaborate things, dress up in, the folks' kit, and have sets, and, and everyone had to come and watch. So I guess I always wanted to be an actress, which is just what everybody seems to want to be, an actress or a dancer. But I actually ended up doing it, so which is kind of cool.
Exactly. So your childhood dream has extended into your adult reality, which is extremely rare, especially with all the people I've spoken to. And I think that's awesome. Living the dream, right? And
that's the dream.
Super cool. Okay. So just for everyone who doesn't know you, can you tell us about what you do?
Okay. So what I do now, basically, so we'll try not to have too much of what we call in our family the Harold Robbins version. We'll do Enid Blyton. Okay. I'll try. All right. So right now, as I said to you a couple of days ago, very lean time, obviously, because of the stage that everybody's in and what's happening in the world. So if it weren't as lean as it is right now, and what I spend my time doing, I would be doing more. So I'm just going to say what I would be doing.
Cool.
And sort of am waiting for to happen again. So I work for, from time to time, a company who has online teaching. So they've got little videos and things. So I use my voice. Basically, my voice is used for everything. So I have to look after it. That's something that I should probably ensure, like pianists with their fingers and things.
Yes.
So I use my voice for that, for recording lessons, voiceovers for children's lessons. That's one part from that company. I also write lessons. I have to research very, very serious and deep things like nationalism and stuff for grade 11s, which I have no clue about because I was not a history major. But anyway, I did it. And so that's from that company. So that's a little bit of performance, as it were, because everything seems to be a performance for me. That part, the voice, a little bit of the writing, and I love that. I love researching and writing. And then I'm also narrating a book for a friend of mine, which is also using my voice.
You can tell. You can tell.
Can I tell? Can I tell?
I've told nobody actually, so let's tell. Let's break the news. No.
Is this like the reveal?
Yeah, let's reveal. Let's reveal.
Okay. So Melina's beautiful book called After You Died. Yay! So my husband and I are working on that. So that's another thing that I'm doing at the moment. So we spend some very interesting hours in the upstairs loft studio with him behind the computer with the cans on and me with this huge mic, reading Melina's words, which get a little bit racy at times, I'm just going to say. And it's interesting when your husband's on the other side. Just saying.
At
Thanks,
least
Mel.
it's your husband and not a random stranger. Like, you know.
No, but anyway.
As long as your kids aren't in the room, then it's fine.
They're never in the room. No. When the double doors are closed, they know no entry. So that's fine. I've learned that one. So yes, I'm narrating that. We're about 3/4 of the way through. And that's been an interesting holding character for a couple of months. That's been interesting for me as an actress. Characters' voices, obviously. So those are the two things that I'm doing at the moment, the two different income streams, as you were asking me. So, but I'm always looking for more. I have other people who are interested in using my voice for podcasts, but not for podcasts, but for little, I think I told you, small little radio plays that sit at the beginning and the end of podcasts.
Fantastic.
Sort of gifts to the public that sit with whoever they're being interviewed, and it's a gift from whoever's sponsoring it, I suppose. So that's what I'm doing right now. Okay.
Cool. But you don't just do, so I mean, voice makes a lot of sense, and aren't you fortunate to have that beautiful voice? Definitely insure it. But that you can use voice now in these times, because you can't necessarily put on a performance. So
okay, so yes,
tell us about your acting as well.
Okay. So yes, that's not what I'm doing at the moment, but that's what I would be doing if I could. So theatre has always been a love, and definitely something that came from the inspiration of my mother, who has always been interested in it, and she used to direct these productions out in the farming districts in Zim, where I grew up on a farm. And so I was always interested in it, and always thrown into all these plays. Didn't matter, oh, you could do this, you can sing that, you do that, you dance. That was just, you just did it, because otherwise you'd be in trouble. But luckily I enjoyed it. So yes, I have over the years here in this country, we've been here for about 15 years. Actually, not just performed for my mother or amateur amdrammy stuff. I've actually got myself into professional acting, which I thoroughly enjoyed, but it is very hard work in that it's very unfamily friendly. And I have a family of 3 teenagers and a husband and a house in the suburbs, the deep south, and most theatre happens the other side. So that's been difficult. So I've had to follow friends' advice who are in this business, who have said, create your own work. And that has been some of the best advice I've had. In fact, even both my husband and I, who's obviously in the same business, he and I have always, as soon as you start having to rely on someone else, things can go wrong. So we've found to rely on yourself most of the time. And so that's what we did. And so in 2015, my husband wrote me a play, and I acted in it, and I produced the whole thing. So that was the first time I'd come in this country out of wasn't in full-time, it was part-time, but I had a salary, and I was teaching drama into working for myself, which is what this whole podcast is about. I work for myself.
That is exactly.
I'm just tying it up for you, Mel. I'm just tying it up.
I love that. Good. So
Yes.
it's amazing that you speak about owning and creating your own content. So obviously I'm a big fan, because I self-publish and I like to own my stuff, and it's very empowering and terrifying all at the same time, because you never know if it's gonna, you sometimes feel as though you need someone else's approval, you know, someone bigger, better, more established, etc., than you, to say yes, it's good enough, and yes, it's worth putting out into the world. And that's a very terrifying thing to do. So how, I mean, you know, your husband Roger created this play, and then you produced, acted it, directed it. Wasn't that a very scary thing to do?
Terrifying.
And
absolutely terrifying.
How did you beat the inertia? How did you, I don't know if you've read a book called The War of Art, by, what's his name? I forget his name. Anyway, it'll come back to me. But The War of Art, if you are a creative, that is the thing. It's about working through the resistance and being able to work against your own kind of voice that is telling you not good enough, you can't, and then coming and actually producing it. So if someone's a creative,
so if
how do they do that?
If I wasn't, this is like a big up my husband thing. If I wasn't married to somebody who understood this business, I think I might battle.
Okay.
You know, because I am like that. I do need, performers definitely need a lot of ego stroking, and also just approval, but it's more affirmation and coming alongside and what have you. So I grew up in a family where if you wanted to do the thing, you must do it, but you must do everything and get on with it, and don't have problems and fuss about it. Just do it. And I feel like that's just so ingrained in me that, you know, to have all the worries and the issues and the pre-planning and all those things you were asking me about those questions, I was thinking, what? No, I didn't think about that. No, I didn't think about that. I think it's a bit of a gung-ho attitude, and which I don't highly recommend. But so for me, it was, that year, 2015, was a very interesting year because I left my job. I was teaching drama at a very well-known school in Hout Bay for 7 years. They did not value me. They did not value my talent and what I brought. They did not. They wanted me there, and they were horrified when I said, I'm going to go. And what about, you know, the point was I just did not feel valued anymore. So I wanted to do something that I loved doing. And I thought, so I did a little bit of Amdram, the amateur theatre. And then I thought, actually, I'm going to do this. And my husband Roger had been writing this play for quite some time. And he said, let's just do it. And actually, I didn't direct, and neither did he. I had a friend who directed me, who used to direct at the Mask, and she'd never done professional directing, whatever. I mean, it's no big difference, but it does. It does make a difference, but it doesn't. I mean, you're still doing the same thing. And she, very beautiful soul and spirit that she is, Colleen van Staden, she didn't take any money. She said, this is your big break. You don't pay me anything. So we literally owned everything. We owned the IP. We owned everything about it, my performance. So I produced it, in other words, did every bloody thing. And then Colleen directed me and helped me along the way. And then we performed it. I mean, I performed it all over Southern Africa. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I'd never been in professional theatre. And I think that gave me the edge. I mean, Roger and I would go, I'd take him along to try and give me a bit more credibility, you know, because he's like written theatre, you know, movies and what. So, yeah, no, he's a movie director. And we would just go and say, okay, can we use your theatre? And okay, so, they split. What the door? Oh, 70-30. Yeah, that sounds cool. Okay, let's do it. We didn't think they might say, don't come into this theatre. No, you can't be a part of it. We were just taking the sort of approach of if you're in Zimbabwe, okay, I keep referring to that because that's how I grew up, where you want to do something, you just go and ask. And they can just say no. There's no fear or because if you want to put on a performance, everyone's excited because there's so few things happening. Does that make sense? So here, I didn't think about the fact there's 45 million theaters going on all the time on every day of the week. We just thought, oh, they're going to want us. It was just like ignorance. It kind of goes a long way. And literally no fear. We just went. And all that could happen, Mel, was they could say no. And we go, oh, okay, let's try something. And I kind of feel that in my life. Just do it. I mean, you've, I think, been to a couple of performances that I've done down here in the Deep South.
Yes.
And those things, I'm telling you now, there are times when my stomach is just going, what are you doing, Debbie? You can't do this. How are you? And then getting top jazz musicians and performers to come and give an hour of their time on a performance night for them, like a Friday or a Saturday, and just come and do it for free down here. And I'm good at that because I just think, well, they can just say no. Yep. So I don't. And anyway, so that's, I think, having nice long Harold Robbins answer there. Did you get what you wanted?
Yes, I did. Exactly. It is about that thing of kind of going, okay, well, luckily you had Roger so that you were a team.
It is a help. Yeah, we are a team.
And so I think maybe in the creative space to work with someone who's your teammate. So I think of Lisa Ferguson, my editor, as my teammate.
Yes.
Yes. She probably feels like a bit of a slave to me because I hack the poor woman endlessly. Shame, poor Lisa. But to me, she is my partner, and I need her to produce a book very much. I need her to say to me, yes, it's okay. And then I feel like I can put it out into the world, you know. So I totally get that, having a partner. So if you are in a creative industry, see who you can partner up with and
totally
how they can help you. But then just get out there and ask. I absolutely love it. I love it's very, I want to say it's very African, that spirit, that cowboy spirit of like, I'll just ask and let's see if they say yes, and if they say no, what you're going to walk away with your tail between your legs, or I mean, actually.
And also, you know, it's also, Mel, it's don't wait until you've got all the things in a row. Honestly, don't wait until you've got some things under your belt, because you can't get them under your belt until you do the thing. So it's that catch-22 of I've got no experience, but the only way I'm going to get it is if I just get out there. So in my life, I've done, I mean, it's probably another one of your questions, but I've put on many performances my whole life as I was an event manager. I ran my own event management team, which I forgot to put in the questions that you asked me. And every one of those little evenings is a little play. You know, you've got actors coming in and out, you've got your speakers, and you've got your whatever, you know, your catering, and you've got a set, and you've got an audience and participants and everything, and every single one, and it gets tied up that night, and then you move on. And so I've always, I thrive on that. I absolutely thrive on that risk. And that's why I love theater more than screen, because there's a risk every time you put on that costume and you get on that stage. It's a risk. So I say that I love it. I say that if I spent 2 years, year and a half with a theater company here. That's easier because it wasn't my theater company. So at the late age of end of my 40s, when I suddenly decided, when most people, let me tell you, come straight out of school or college, and in this city anyway, and they've been at AFTRs and UCTs and Stellies and what have you, and they go out there and they're these youth pitching up, and they've got their whole lives ahead of them to try out these things and to get all these. And I've been everywhere else, and suddenly late starter thought, this might be fun, you know. And I think that helped me. My age, my maturity, and the fact that I didn't really give up, you know, because I thought, whatever, it's not my identity. That's the one thing with performance work. You know, if it's your identity, you're going to get very squashed and very hurt, or you can be. It's like when you take your children for modeling and, you know, trying to go casting and stuff like that. You have to teach them, and it's hard for littlies. Or even teens, you know, this is not your identity. If they don't like you, it's not because it's just you're wrong for that small thing. So yeah, so it didn't dent that. So yes, that's theater for me, and that I loved. I worked for a very intense, just over a year, where I directed a play that like an award-winning, world-renowned, amazing theater man called Nicholas Ellenbogen wrote this play and said to me, direct it. And in fact, you can direct Michelle Maxwell, who's this long-time amazing performer, singer, actress, pianist in this country. And what? He said, and people believed in me because of, I don't know, maybe the way I am. I'm a bit sort of, yeah, I can do it. And then afterwards I think, what the hell? And then I phone Roger and go, should I do this? And he goes, yeah. And then, Nicholas said to me, director. And then a Fleur de Cap award-winning Shakespearean actor. He said, just do it. And I thought, okay, he believes I can, so I believe. And I directed that, and then I was in his play, and then I was in another play, all in 1 year. And I thought to myself, yo, I wished I'd started this when I was younger. Because you've got to have, all in 1 year. But having said all those things about performance, it's an extremely difficult, we're not talking about the industry, I know, but it's an extremely difficult industry to get into, to make money in. So the best advice is create your own work. Just create your own work. Own it, create it, find your own venues. And if anybody does put any money in or help, great, but be ready to be it. And I think that's the only advice I can give you.
And I think that's excellent advice in the sense that if you haven't got anything that you've created, like, there's nothing to work with. There's nothing to improve. There's nothing to fix, to alter. And it's always like when people say, oh, well, how do you write a book? You sit in front of a computer for 100 million hours and you crank out some words. And then, excuse me, and then you actually have to go and fix that thing. But at least you've got a thing to work with.
Got to have a thing.
Exactly. And that's what you found, which is amazing. And I love that you've come into this industry at a later stage where you were more certain of who you are and what you can bring to the party. And I almost want to say, like, if people have that desire to do something creative, and maybe they were told as youngsters, no, you shouldn't, you won't make money, all those things.
Yes, I know those ones.
Yeah, like, try, do something like Amdram, or, I spoke to another woman, Lisa King, and she also late in life decided she still wanted to be a singer. So she would go to karaoke bars and
wonderful
to sing in karaoke bars. And she's then sung in bands. So I think if you've got that calling to do, like me, I've written a book at like 39, like that was my first book. Like I didn't write a book before that. So, as we get older, sometimes that burning desire is there deep within you. And I think listen to that, especially now, and let that creative thing come out and go with it. It's not necessarily about giving up your day job, but actually experiencing that art form and going for it. I'm a firm believer.
I would definitely say keep the day job.
Same.
From experience. From experience,
yes.
Keep the day job. Find a way to work around that so that you have to support yourself. Let's be real. I have lots of students that come to me who the parents come and go, oh, my darling, she's just so arty and she's so dramatic. And it's a hard one for me because I want to say, good, off you go. Go to drama school and go and let rip, And then I think, well, okay, do that. Follow it somewhere in your life, because if you squash that, then there's other issues.
Yes.
So I think we've talked about it a lot because we have 3 children, and I didn't get great advice, I've got to say, about work. My dad was a farmer, and his work surrounded him. He didn't go to work. He didn't, he was in it all the time. And he was a tobacco farmer, and we didn't really, I think it's their era. They didn't talk about money and how to save money and what to do with it and how to make it. And they weren't career people, my parents. My mum had been a nurse, and then she was just putting on plays and looking after cows. But
the cows, you children. I was going to say she was putting on plays and looking after children, and then you said cows, and I was like, oh.
No, I meant cows. Okay, the real moo things, those things. She nearly got mauled by one. I'm just going to tell you, it had very big horns. I think it was number 28. Number 28 was very scary. So what was I saying? Yeah, we didn't get great advice, but we were given that drive.
Mm.
And not even an ambition or a drive that said, everyone out of my way. It was just, if you've got it in you, do it. And well, what's stopping you, kind of thing, but not in an aggressive way, you know.
Mm.
So that, I think, was really important. My dad dropped me off at university, and we had the prospectus, and we looked through what I was going to do. And he had decided I was going to do computer science. And computer science, and therefore I had to do maths, I think, and a couple other things. But if I wanted to, I could probably put Psych 1 in there. He left and went back to Zimbabwe, and then I went to registration, and I did not do computer science. So, you know, I looked at this and I thought, are you absolutely kidding me? And it wasn't even a late rebellion, it was nothing. It was just, what? No. And I went to that table and I said to that, I'm doing drama. Oh, I'm also going to do fine art, two practical subjects at the same time. Of course, I had to drop one of those after the first year because I nearly died. And how amazing that I wanted to do that. I actually studied it, but then I lived in a country where you couldn't make money out of it.
Mm.
So I've done about a million other things.
Yeah.
I was even placed in one of my nanny jobs when I lived in England with a very well-known actress because I had a degree in drama.
Oh, wow.
Perfect. Yeah, I worked for Jane Seymour in her most beautiful, beautiful house.
I did not
Because I had
know about you.
Oh, my sweetie, we have long hours to talk about all of these things. Wonderful life I've had.
Oh, wow, Debs.
Yeah.
So I then kind of think, okay, so sure, we can all go to varsity and study to be accountants and then spend some miserable years working, and then we can slowly start to undo that and try and find who we really are. But you didn't, and you went and you have created your life around this mixture of what you love, and it's taken you to interesting places and interesting
it totally
people.
has.
And so maybe it's not for every personality. Like you're that robust, you're a Zimbo, I mean, you're basically bulletproof, so you know, it's like true story. So you know, it obviously takes a certain personality, but I think if, you know, in terms of kind of advising children, if the child is quite robust and outgoing, then, you know, maybe try a creative thing. They will make something of it. You have made something.
Okay, I've just remembered what I was trying to say to you, Mel. Okay, so when Roger and I, when our kids were growing up, okay, so they're now in their teens from 15 to 20, nearly 20. And when we started talking to them about how do you live, how do you look after yourself, okay, and how do you work and be satisfied and all that. So we've always talked about that Venn diagram, and where the Venn diagram, where it overlaps, can't do that with my fingers like that, where that little thing, where it overlaps, that thing, something that you're good at, and something that you love, and where does it overlap that you can make money out of it, like you know, can find the way to monetize what you love, then you'll never work a day in your life because it'll just be fun, you know.
And
I mean,
the thing is that what I always think about is that your parents probably, and us as parents probably, won't know what that job is, you know.
So, absolutely.
My parents could never have predicted that me going and studying a BSc would result in me doing like marketing and writing, you know. But yeah, it's they don't, and sometimes they're still kind of curious as to what exactly do you do. So it's difficult to try to find that, but I love the idea of the two circles kind of working together and finding that, you know, that piece in the middle that brings everything together. And it's tricky. I think sometimes you fall into one circle and then into the other, and then you come back, and it takes time. It's a journey really to find that perfect place.
It is, and I think the journey is the beautiful part, because that's creating you who you are. That's putting all those pieces together. And I was talking to a writer the other day, or maybe I was listening to somebody. I've listened to so many podcasts over the lockdown, and somebody was just saying, what must I do? What do you write about? Where must I? And this person just said, have a life to write about. Have something to say. Now, you can't have something to say if you're not living. So it's a difficult one. You want to say, okay, go out there, just have some fun. And I do agree with that, actually. I think getting out, it was easy for me. I was very privileged. My parents sent me overseas. I went and had I actually had a year in America as an exchange student as well, which also had a huge impact on me. Living in Chicago in the 80s, so I did that. And then I had my years at varsity in another country, because I was from Zim. So I already I was independent from being aborted from the age of 7 already. Then I traveled all over. Then I went to England, and they gave me and my sister these beautiful tickets of, go overseas. I mean, not everybody has that. I mean, we were so privileged. And then, trips around Europe. And so all of those things have they've informed who I am. And it makes me a more interesting person, and therefore, well, I think so. And there's more for me to mine. Does that make sense? For writing, for performance, for courage. And I'll tell you one thing, Mel, as we said, like, having a partner and somebody who in the industry, who will just whisper in your ear. And when I pulled out of teaching drama, I met up with a friend of mine who's an author. She's a journalist and an author. And she was so impressed by what I had done. And at the time, I had thought I'd been a complete idiot in one sense. I was thinking, are you mad? Why do you do that? And I told her, and she found me sitting in the car reading Hamlet and trying to edit Shakespeare in the car park at Fisher Primary School. And she said, what are you doing? And I said, and I held it up and I said, Shakespeare. And she went, oh, I love Shakespeare. What are you doing? And then I told her, and I said, well, actually, I'm directing my last play there, which I cut in half, because Hamlet's like 4 hours long. And then I was going, and I was going to go and make a go for it, go of it, and go. She became my praise singer. She would introduce me. This is Debi, and she has given up her job to go out there on her own and follow. She was like a praise singer, like those, West African people have praise singers. Oh, she was my praise singer. She was just amazing. Introduced me to and people in other industries. And, she said, oh, you should meet so-and-so. So I think that networking thing, and I think women are phenomenal at networking. I far outstrip my husband in that. Networking, yes, and marketing of self. And I think one of your questions was, what do you use to market yourself? How do you, get yourself? Everything is this. Meet somebody, blah, 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 blah. Oh, yes, I do that, and I do that, and I do that, which may annoy some people, but then I don't want to know them anyway. And then the other people go, oh, that's nice, and I put them on my list, and then they get invited to the next, whatever it might be. And
yeah, well, you took the question out of my mouth. I love that about you. Hey, actresses, they're so scary.
Tying it all up for you, babes.
Dude, I'm just going to check out and carry on recording, really.
Shall I just do both jobs? Okay.
Yeah, just go right ahead. So I love that. Debs, I did want to know how you market yourself. So, okay, say you have, let's kind of pick a scenario as someone who maybe has found themselves maybe unemployed or deciding to start their own creative experience. How are they going to go out there and tell people about what they do? It's so, when I meet people, I say, oh, I'm a marketing consultant. I don't say I write books. Like, maybe I do. And then a friend of mine, if I'm with her, she'll go, and she writes books.
And she,
tell them about the books.
Don't you love it?
And I'm always like, I always glare at her and go like, shut up. And it's so tricky. You do need that praise singer, and find your loudest friend.
They help.
Yeah, tell them what you're going to do, and I promise you they will not
Yes.
shut up.
Send them
So
out there.
yeah, and aren't those people just the most wonderful people in the world? They are
I
just
love them.
those
I love them.
amazing people who just want to help and tell everybody about their friends. And I have such great respect for those amazing people. So find that friend of yours that is that big kind of
Yes.
loud mouth and who will embarrass you at the dinner table or at the next dinner party or on a Zoom
Yeah.
conversation and say, oh, and she does. But
This is
back,
this.
yeah, exactly. But
Okay, so
besides
Mel, I would
marketing and
say,
networking, anything else that
yeah.
you do to kind of get
So
yourself out there?
I'm very, I told you, very old fashioned, but I'm telling you now, a personal, obviously not advertising as in, if I'm doing something very specific, not in ha ha ha, hire me, but more if it was, okay, I'm putting on this thing. So there's a play, it's at the Rosebank Theatre, it's quite far from where most of my family and friends live down here. So I would be and I would use email. And the reason I use email is because everything sits there on that person's computer or their phone, I suppose. But I like the idea of being more professional in that. So I do that. As I say, I speak whatever I'm doing all the time. And because I'm very chatty and I know a lot of people, that helps. I think visuals are really important. And obviously if you've got, posters and things, for me, I love visuals because I think it links people's eyes to things. So even though people tell me posters don't work anymore, I will put posters if it's a play everywhere. And then that same poster I will post on Facebook. I'm not a fan of Facebook, but I've got to say for marketing things that I do, it actually works really well. The job that I got, which sort of works on that I'm working on, I've done a lot of these like strange things, and it's all through this person met that person met that, and they phone, oh Debbie, I hear that. And it's always, for me, it's hearsay, but that's the kind of business that I'm in. I know that's not going to necessarily work if you're in, I don't know, bookkeeping or whatever, but I did not say that rudely. I said it with great respect. It's I like, one person phoned me and said, oh, I hear there's this company and they're doing online lessons and your voice would be perfect, why don't you phone them? And I sent an email, she sent one back, blah, 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 got the job. Then another one was when I was teaching at AFTA, and somebody knew Roger, said, oh, she'd be perfect, let's use her, she could teach the whatever's higher certificate. So I got to go and lecture at a tertiary education, whatever, and it was just so much fun. And I was lecturing about theatre and design and design elements and art. It was just, I went back to college. And so my life is weird like that. Then I go and do voiceovers for my husband's animation. Oh, that's what I am doing. I'm writing a book, aren't I?
Yes, you are.
Children's books. I've written 4 of them, and my darling daughter, who's an artist, and now I can say she's a book illustrator, is illustrating. So that came about because we're nepotistic in Zimbabwe. So everybody we keep all the jobs in-house.
That's great. That is very out there, progressive and loving. Not.
I know.
But isn't it wonderful? And you've got basically for that book, you've got your whole team living in your house. So
in my house.
In time of quarantine, it was very, very good to have your whole team in house. Yeah. So
yeah, I mean, how amazing. I could just sit here and work, and then I could call the kids and go, okay, so what do you think about this title? And is this a good line? And then I'd read it to them as if they were still 3 or 5 years old. And they'd all look at me like I was crazy. And I'd go, okay, that one worked. And then, go up to the husband and say, how does this feel? Because he originally created these stories, and say, oh, honey, say, excellent, sounds amazing. Take it to Jasmine, and she'd start working on the artwork, and it's just amazing. So,
that is,
yeah,
that's a beautiful process. So yeah, I hope you're going to discourage Jasmine from her art and her illustration. Hey, yeah, better not tell her to get into bookkeeping.
Discourage?
Yeah,
No. into bookkeeping. My gosh, her adding. No, not going to happen.
Oh, Debs, that is absolutely classic. I love that. What a treat. So in terms of kind of like, and just talking about how having everyone at home and obviously working from home a lot too, you have a studio upstairs, you've got your daughter who's illustrating downstairs, you've got husband. How do you create boundaries? Because it can't all be work, you know? So obviously work flows, and sometimes there's more and sometimes there's less. But how do you also set up boundaries for, you know, what's important to you outside of work?
So I think that if when we all, like, if Roger and I are both working on something at the same time, different things, and they are quite intense. Say, for example, if I'm doing lots of voiceovers for lessons or intense research and I need to be in my office, we're just very blessed that we've got a big house. So that is one very important thing. So physically, we've all got a space. Right. But yeah, the boundary between when do you put it down and when do you go and have a drink on the balcony, that's a bad one. It's a hard one. I'm of the mind that you should stop working at a certain time in the day. But obviously, if there's deadlines, you've got to, you've got to get on with it. But because Roger also works from home now and his studio is no longer in Muizenberg, it is quite difficult. I think it's important to treat it like a work day.
Okay.
I don't know what your thoughts are on like that. I think it's important to treat it like a work day. Have your own home time, even if it's in the same room that you work, and do your meditation or your whatever you do in the mornings, and a stretch or a run or whatever, and then start to work. But don't get so bogged down with that, because you're the boss of you. I mean, how blinking brilliant is that? Be the boss of yourself. And if somebody, like yesterday, if somebody, one like me, said, "Oh, guys, look at this weather. Let's go and get in the sea." Don't tell anybody I said that, because we're not allowed to swim yet. And just pull everybody out their rooms. Roger's in the middle of some really important phone call to somebody. Jasmine's doing her assignment for something. Get in the car, have a swim. You're the boss of you. You're not in a place where you're in, a suit. And so I think it's balance, Do your work, stop for a lunch, whether you eat or not, stop. I think that's really a bad thing. If you take your work into where you eat and be with others, that's a problem. So we have quite strict rules with phones. So that's one thing. And then just to end the day, and actually come and be with family. But we're big into that. We're big into family and being together and connecting and all that. So that's an important thing. Yeah.
Lovely. And I think it's so important. You've got to be able to switch it off. I found, you kind of said, well, where am I at? I found now that I'm struggling with my boundaries. I'm tending to, because in the morning, with kids and stuff, working and helping them and trying to do an email, stop starting one single email about 50 times. Then, and all of a sudden it's lunch, and then we sit for lunch. And then afterwards, and then it's finished, whatever they're doing. And then they eventually go and play. And then I can start my work. And now it's 2:00 and it's post lunch.
Yeah.
And I'm just blinking at my screen, So I'm finding that my day is this funny, 2 to 6 o'clock time. And then I pick up work and work.
That's not ideal, Mel.
No, it's not ideal. But they go back to school on the 6th of July. Oh my goodness, we are counting down the days. The days. And I know I sound like a horrible mother, but I adore my children.
It's realistic, my darling.
A teacher is actually impossible. It's actually impossible. I can't. I'm a terrible teacher. I believe in paying teachers. I will pay teachers even more. I think good money for teachers, much so. If anything that comes out of this, I mean, can people not realize that teachers deserve more money? But
I mean, honestly, yes.
So my boundaries have become very funny in this thing, and I almost feel like I have none. I feel like I go to bed thinking about work. But yes, I think that it's good that you have managed to set that. And I would say, don't do what I do, of course. Do what Debs is doing. And
no, I'm brilliant.
set those boundaries when you aren't obviously working to a deadline. I mean, yeah, that's quite tricky.
Then you must just go for it. And then that's exciting. If you have work, Mel, it's exciting. Work the hours, do the thing, and then because then the thing is done and it's exciting. And so, you know, for many years, Roger and I didn't work together, just for various reasons. Actually, when I first got married, I was working for IBM computers. Wow. So my dad was kind of like, he was maybe slightly prophetic. I did work for them, and I actually loved it. I was in sales, that didn't last long, and then I ended up in marketing and corporate communications, which was way more my thing, and got into the communications side and working with PR companies. I loved it, writing press releases, writing magazines, internal, external. It was, even though it was within the confines of something that was so not me, which was the digital technology suits and what have you, I still wore my Levi jeans and got on with it. Nobody really cared. It was Zimbabwe. But when I went to England, Roger and I spent time in England, and between leaving IBM and going to England, I seriously believe in gleaning and like mining your friends for information. And I don't mean it in a bad way. You know what I'm talking about, Mel. Come on, you do it too. Oh, that's what she does. Write it in my little, I still write things. You probably type it, but I'd write it in my little diary and say, oh, phone that company or whatever. And I actually gleaned a whole way of running events from a company that worked for IBM. So when I left there, I started my own events company called Big Star Promotions. And I ran my own events with literally no experience. But I had the drive. I knew all the caterers. I even knew the guy who owned the company who did the tent. This is Harare, which is very small, but it's the same thing wherever you are. We went to England, and I went to get a job. And there, because everything's so specialized in the rest of the world, I think I do lump South Africa with Zimbabwe in some ways, but Harare is just so much smaller. But there, even when you went to go and get a job, they said, well, what part of events were you working in? Was it in logistics or in marketing? And I went, I did everything. And they would say, but they even had separate recruitments for marketing, separate recruitment agencies, marketing in events, logistics and events. I said, I don't know. Well, which did you prefer? I don't know. I like them all. So then I got pushed into marketing, and then I worked for a really big American company. We did events all over Europe. I mean, it was so much fun. Yeah. So I've had a weird life.
No, you've had a glamorous life. It sounds very well. Actually, no. We always used to laugh in advertising when we ever did when any of the campaigns were including an event, and then we'd be standing there after a day of not eating anything, and now you're watching, all the people sitting down and having their amazing dinner or whatever, and we'd look at each other, but we'd all be like dressed, pretty, and we'd look at each other and go,
very nice.
Glamour, 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 and it used to be a big joke amongst us, everything looks so beautiful and glamorous, but oh my goodness, it's just hard work. Eventing is hard
work. The work. Oh. Yeah, it was something I thought about going back into when I came here, and I actually was too old. When I looked at the adverts, I was too old to do the jobs. They didn't want me. Really interesting. I mean, I could have run my own, obviously, and we did think about doing that for a while, but it's just, you have to sort of know your limitations as well, especially when you have family, and you must be clever. As I said to you, I've been so grateful. I could not have done the theatre work I did if I didn't have such a supportive family who are all interested in it.
Yes.
So, even, my kids, Jasmine worked backstage with me. She's been everything from prompt to lighting person to, work backstage, dresser, whatever, because she was the oldest and she would come with me to everything. And because I had a family who supported me and just said, go, excellent, come back, go, just enjoy. And it's, having somebody or a support base, even if it's not your family or your husband or whatever, just that praise singer, that supporter that just says, you've got it. It's a weird thing that we can do it ourselves, but we just need that extra little bit of something. I've always had women around me in the last half of my life. Yeah, definitely since I got married and a little bit older. I've had such amazing women, like just really special, almost like a sacred place where you can just say anything and they just support you and think you're amazing. So then you start to believe it yourself.
I know. Well, I mean, they wouldn't if it wasn't true. You know what I'm saying? Like, you would have lost that
I don't know.
trust.
Some of your best friends lie to you, you know.
Some of them do, but that's sweet and nice too also sometimes.
It is,
So,
yeah. White lies.
I know. But there's two things here for me before we kind of close out, is that
Yes.
one is the praise singer, the person who is there shouting your name from the top of the hills. And they come in many forms, and there's often multiple of those different people. And then there's the family support. And I think this has come up in an interview before, where it's that don't try and do your creative passion, on your own, separate from your family. So often people will think, well, I want to learn how to play the piano, I've got to separate it from my family. No, rather share your dream with your family. They're kind of that first step where you kind of go, when I was a little girl, I wanted to play the piano. I'd like to try do that now. I'm going to go learn the piano. Yeah. What I need from you guys is 1 hour a week, and negotiate what you need from your family. You went to your family and you said, I want to do this thing. We want to create this thing.
Yeah.
We're going to go out there, and you negotiated with you, Jasmine could help you. Roger could help you, and the boys could maybe just be good for an hour, so there's all of those things. And I think it's important to bring your family on board in terms of following your creative pursuit and getting them to buy into your dream. And I think, yeah, you've done that, and that's why you get the support. If you were just flitting off and going, I'm going to drama, bye, that's different. That doesn't work.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that obviously in our time of life, that's all very relevant. Of course, it's not relevant for everybody. There's people who are totally, single on their own, starting out. That's a whole nother story. That's different. That's a completely different thing. And that's people who are now looking at, they still need support. So, often when there's people in other parts of the world and the country who say, I'm sending my child to UCT, they're coming to do a degree, whatever, or wherever, or Waterfront Theatre School or something, I always say to them, take my number, because you need support in that. It's because you in the kind of business that we all work in, even when I'm just doing voiceovers for students, you're giving of yourself. It's not of your knowledge. It's not cerebral only. It's always connecting the heart, and it's you giving from deep in your soul, which is something that you love, but your spirit is being used. Does that make sense? So you can be depleted. So it's to surround yourself, and also to that whole thing of be kind to everybody that you meet on the way. I'll give you a quick little story of this amazing young man who I met in 2014, I think it was. He was a young Zim guy from some far off town used to be called Malseta, in eastern Zimbabwe. Little boy, and dinky is what I mean. He was about 18 when I met him. He was job shadowing the director of my play at the mosque. Okay, so he was just this little boy, Tafara Natsanza, and he says, hello, whatever, and I recognize that Tafara is a Zimbabwean name, so I go and I talk to him, and we make this connection, and I see this brightness. I love to pull people with me. I love to build people up, because I've been so looked after. So if I see something in somebody, especially the youth, I'm fascinated by children, and especially as they get into their teens and they become all awkward and what have you, to try and encourage them to just keep going, and I don't know what there was about him. Anyway, and then we bumped into each other again in 2016. He was doing lights for me at another play. Now, he was some boy from a tiny little school in, I don't even know where, Retreat or something, some school where he was so good at performing in the Shakespeare Festival that they put on at the Baxter, that people had said, if you want to go further, you need to job shadow and so then somehow he got connected to Nicholas Ellenbergen, and he was working on the lights, and he didn't know what he was doing. He just pitched up, and he was told push. And I thought, oh my gosh, it's you again. And we connected again. And then he worked on that show that I directed. He was my lighting guy. And then we were in the next play together. So here I am, sort of like way down the line, nearing 50. And here was this little 19-year-old, 20-year-old boy who was starting out, starry-eyed. But do you know that young man, he just turned 22, I think, he won a Fleur de Cap award, which is the highest award you can get in theatre in this country.
Wow.
Whenever it was, 2 weeks ago. I bawled because to me, you know, that's our job. That's your job as an author, as a marketer, to talk to people. And I know you do that with students, you know, with kids. Just talk all the time, like, yes, follow it, do it. And when I phoned Tafara that night after when he won that award, he won it for a play that he'd been in by himself. He was a one-man play. And he did go to UCT, and he got lots of support. Even people paid for him to go because of his can-do, yes sir, not yes sir, but it was like can-do attitude and this brightness in him. And I remember saying to him, Tafara, be on time, say yes to everything, and you will get so much experience. And I expect to see you at the Fleur de Caps. And then he won one. Oh. It was okay. That's because he'd always come to me and talk to me because he knew that I knew where he came from. Here, people wouldn't understand the tiny little town that he came from. So it was just the most amazing feeling. So I feel like that's part of my raison d'etre, is to encourage and to inspire youth and get them to go with it. So that's my little shiny story at the end.
Debs, you've given me goosebumps. I'm like, oh. It's just, what a beautiful story.
I'll have my cry later again. I love Taffy. He's a great boy.
Oh, it's just wonderful. And I'm so glad that you're able to take what you've learned and your lessons and share them and then see someone grow. And I think what we could all probably learn from him is that persistence. He didn't just walk onto stage and then win an award.
No ways.
He was behind the scenes. He was pressing the like buttons. He was doing a lot of stuff to get where he wanted to be on stage. And I think that is the other thing. Persistence, showing up.
It's showing up
on time.
Exactly. And knowing that, and just saying yes. Do you want to try this? I've got this. Do you want to? Yes. And then work out how you're going to do it. You know, have you ever worked on? Yes, not really. Anyway, I mean, I would see him crawling on the, it was just, and I would say to him, Taff, do you know what you're doing? Yeah, and he's just learning on the job. And I never had that, so, with all the theatre arts side of it, I didn't know all of that stuff. The technical, I've had to learn very late in my life. So I said to him, learn from everybody you meet. And he's a great success, and a pretty amazing little dude. So I'm very pleased.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I wish him the best of luck, and I hope he goes on to great things. Thank you, Debs, for being his star too, and to, I think, mentoring him. And I think, I'm sure there's, in the Deep South, we could so do with a lovely drama school here, Debs. I'm just saying, Anyway, we'll talk about that. But thank you so much for being on the I Work For Me podcast. I really appreciate having you. And how do people get hold of you?
As I said, very old-fashioned Luddite. I don't do Instagram. I don't do all those things, but I do have an email address.
Go with that.
Because I love email. So I am Debi, Debi, at Umoya Films, UMOYA films.com. And also I'm on Facebook, Debi Thomas Hawkins, and I'm Debi. That's me.
Yay, that's great. That'll cut it. Thanks, Amal.
That cut it.
Yeah,
thanks, Mel. Great to talk to you. Bye.
Bye.